So it's like immediately whatever you can do once you feel the spiral happening is immediately disrupting the pattern. So whether that's like throwing your phone down, walking around, taking a, call someone, whatever it is, literally whatever you can do to break that state and break that thought pattern and stop yourself from going down that route is the first and most effective way of doing that.
Tyler and me, Christina Olson, are hosting a place where we blend neuroscience, story medicine, healing, and raw, real conversations to unlock your inner potential and inner knowing. You don't need fixing, you need remembering. Remember you. Welcome home. Today, we're going to learn a lot more about Hope Shay, and she's a board certified hypnosis. She is also a breathwork facilitator and someone who has an immense, deep knowledge of inner healing. She's here today to bring a story of her past and explain how she's been bringing to the surface the uncomfortable parts of yourself and realize that it's okay to feel, to sit, and love the parts of you that might not be the best parts of you. Her work is rooted in science, shaped by personal transformation, and delivered with a kind of grounded presence that makes you feel safe enough to finally exhale. This is a 2-part episode. Hope takes us through a journey of shadow work, emotional release, and the tools that create real, lasting freedom. This is for anyone ready to understand themselves more deeply and finally feel better in their mind, body, and overall life. Here's the inner architect, Hope Shay.
Yay. Thank you. Okay, cool. Well, I think the perfect place to start this episode, which I love the idea, inner architect, that was Christina Olson idea, I got to give you a shout, is just really starting with one of my core values that I look at life from in every single aspect, and is freedom. And really taking time to identify what that means. And so for the purpose of this episode, the goal is to really feel and understand the power of emotional freedom and what the work that we do to get to that place and how it overflows in such positive ways in every other area of our life. So like as Christina was saying, I am a board certified hypnotist and somatic breathwork facilitator. So these are the main tools that I use when I'm working with my clients to help them kind of get to this place of inner freedom and unlock a level of authenticity in their life that allows them to just like feel better and not feel any shame or any negativity towards maybe the uncomfortable parts of themselves that they don't like or, feel like they have to hide, when in reality, we're all feeling and we all have it. Mm-hmm. We're all the same, like in that regard. It's just different flavors, different stories and experiences, but ultimately those really heavy things that we carry, a lot of people can relate to it. And I think there oftentimes just needs to be conversation and like shining a light on it. And once we kind of bring these things to light, that's when the real work begins and the actual healing begins. And then these tools that we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the episode, which is hypnosis and breath work, can just absolutely compound and, really 10x your speed to like really not only getting past the healing part, but just to like kicking ass in like every single aspect of your life. So that's the goal. And ultimately too, since a lot of this is also relating to business, I really want listeners to keep in mind, this isn't meant to be, super emotional. It's only for people who've had anxiety or, have, different internal struggles. This is for anyone who wants to be successful in any area of their life in a more efficient manner. Like no matter who you are and how good your upbringing is and whatever it is, we all have shit that we need to face and we need to deal with. And the sooner that we do that, like the more successful your business is going to be, the happier your relationships, your marriage, your relationship with your kids, it flows into everything. And it's something that oftentimes I think people just don't give enough credit to how much space internally, emotionally, this kind of stuff takes up. So I just wanted to preface that that's kind of where we're going with the conversation.
Awesome. So, can you share with us what led you originally down this journey?
Yes. Well, journey meaning like getting into
Yeah,
breathwork
so
and
like when
hypnosis.
you're raised in whatever we want to say a normal like family where we want a mom and a dad and
Mhm.
some siblings or whatever, what was it normal? Is there any normal actually,
Yes.
should I ask?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's
No.
anything such thing as normal, but
Yeah.
in the nuclear family that we've historically said is normal, which normal could be left up to your own devices on what you want to say is normal, but so
Yeah.
start there with us and how did your spiritual journey evolve where you started saying, hey, I have to love every part of myself? And when did you start bringing those tools in? Was it, I was 10 and somebody
God,
turned me on
I wish.
this?
That's why I'm telling this story. That's a great
can we
starting
teach
point.
this to our 10-year-olds?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
so
kind of like a big part of where I want to start. And yes, so okay, what my upbringing? I would say from the outside looking in, super normal family. Awesome parents. I have two sisters. One is 10 years older, is a half sister. And so it's really just, I was very involved in like sports. I would say a little bit of an obsessive overachiever. So I've had straight A's since second grade, like totally a nerd in all of those regards. But there were themes of like pretty intense mental illness in a variety of my family members. And so at a very young age, I realized, okay, like I'm going to probably have to be working with, like, I'm going to have some tools because there's people around me that are struggling with anxiety, depression. And at the time, so I'm 33. So when I was 10 years old, all of these conversations about therapy, mental health, it was still kind of like, ooh, that's like crazy people stuff, like you're going to get like slapped on with labels of like different issues. And so I just very young knew that that's kind of where the perfectionism was born. It's like I have people around me that are really suffering and I don't want to be like that. So now everything I do in my life is it's just like that's if I'm perfect, no one will know that like I have those similar internal struggles as well.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where and it's totally unconscious. It wasn't like I was like 10 and was like, this is what I'm going to do. It just started to evolve and happen in that way.
And so when we talk about hypnosis, that's one of the things that it's like you just downloaded a program to keep yourself safe.
Absolutely.
And that's where it came from.
Yes. And I would say, yes, the reason why hypnosis is so powerful is because it's working with your subconscious mind. But for me, I felt that there was a part missing in that process. And that's where breathwork comes in for me. And a lot of my story and like this, perfectionism, being a super high achieving like athlete, student, all these different things was largely fueled by physical anxiety. Like I had so much concern about being enough and like I was like, I didn't think I was smart enough. I was like, am I going to get accepted in any college? And people on the outside are like, well, it's crazy. Like, why would you even think that? And I like applied to like 20 colleges because I had this deep seated fear that it was like, I wasn't going to be smart enough. I wasn't going to be good enough or whatever it was when I was kicking ass in every measure. And it was just this internal world, which kind of goes back to our title of like being an inner architect. I wasn't architecting anything. It was an absolute spiral on the inside, but I just knew how to wear a very, very well curated mask. And all of that was completely unconscious. Like I was, a 10-year-old doesn't say, and then beyond, like, I'm going to make sure that no one knows this, it was just like something that kind of happened. And so, yeah, so that's kind of what led me ultimately to getting to this place. But a great starting place, before getting into like what, I love to use the term shadow work. And we were talking about that before we started. And a great place to start is just that, like, it's just looking at myself from like when I was in high school. I was the captain of a soccer team, made varsity my freshman year, was in all honors and AP classes. I was the president of a volunteer club and grew it from like, there had been like historically like 20 people. I grew it to like 200. Like, it was just like, I was just doing all these things and with very good intention, but I would come home and just like crumble, because I was so exhausted from maintaining this perception. And even though I genuinely, my heart was in all of those things, it was just like on the inside, I was really severely suffering. And my number one goal with like being all this success was just like getting out and getting away and getting as far away as I could to like kind of figure out who I was. And so that process, the more I talk to people about it, the more I realize how common that is, especially with high performers, of like never letting them see you sweat, and never letting people understand, kind of what's going on in those inner workings. But like Jess and I were talking about the other day, it was like, man, if I would have had someone assist me with my mental game and with my, putting language to the feelings that I was having, I mean, who knows where I would have been in the suffering that I went through over the 5 or 6 years that followed that, unraveling everything. I could have been shortened to a year, 6 months, of just like putting language and tools to working through these very common issues that people have.
So do you think there's a way to define anxiety and what that feels like in the body?
Yes. I think there's a million definitions to this for everybody, but for me, it was just a constant need to be on, and also like not feeling safe in my own body. So it was just like as long as I'm doing and like, producing in whatever way, that was the only thing that brought me relief. And all that really was, what now that I know, was a dysregulated nervous system. So that's all it was. Yeah. And I also want to clarify too, everyone's experience with mental health issues or anxiety is so completely different. So this is really just like my story. And I don't want to take away from like what other people experience. But for me, it was just like, I had no idea how to slow down. And I had no idea that it was just an agitated nervous system. And the only way that I found relief was running, and burning 5,000 calories every single day at, my 2-a-day practices and like weightlifting and all these things. It's like, oh, that's the only thing that makes me feel better. Well, no shit. Like, it's because you're moving the energy through your body. But there's other ways to do it without burning yourself out and like running yourself into the ground.
And so how did you realize it was an agitated nervous system? Like, what made you think, oh, it's...
Yeah, I would say... Well, I couldn't
realize.
Yeah, I would say I didn't have the language around all of that until probably about 5 years ago. But during this time, I finally started to learn about spirituality and I started to get into mindfulness.
Is that in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. My mom was like kind of sometimes listening to, there's 2 different routes of one with like Tony Robbins, like Wayne Dyer, that kind of started to put me on. I was like, okay, like they're talking about like affirmations and like having a positive mindset and like, your thoughts create your reality. It was like, okay, these concepts don't really make sense to me, but I know that this is a direction I'm supposed to go just like intuitively. And that's kind of, I think, what led me to beginning understanding what that is. But yeah, wait, were you about to say something? Oh, okay.
Nope.
No, okay, great. So I would say too, the concept of shadow work and why I want to talk about that is it's actually a concept that I did not make up, by the way. It is by a Swiss psychiatrist, Carl Jung. And all it is describing the aspects of our personality that we choose to reject or repress. And so for me in that time, it was like I had all of this shame around not knowing how to handle my stress and manage my anxiety. And I had a lot of dysfunction kind of at home regarding like the mental, struggles that people around me had, even though on the outside, like I lived in a nice house, I like went to a good school. Like there was nothing, I never went without, so there was no like obvious signs of like real struggle. But because of that, I think it made me feel bad even more that I had these different issues. Cause like on the surface, everything was like taken care of. But eventually, once I left that environment and went to college, that's really when things started to unravel for me because I stopped playing sports. So I didn't have the physical outlet anymore because I didn't want to play like for I wanted to just go to school for the academic perspective and then insert substances here, where it's like I went to Auburn, which is a huge SEC school. I joined a sorority. The environment in general is just like super normal to like work hard, play hard. So we'd be studying, working, going to class all day and then like, tons of drinking and like partying at night. And that was just super normal. And so those issues, bringing alcohol into the picture really brought me relief initially, because it's a depressant for your nervous system. So I was like, oh God, I can relax. This is great. Like, and I hadn't really been a big partier. I was a nerd. Like I was, as like I said before, just like overachiever in all those regards. And so now I was away from my family. I was away from what I felt was the source of a lot of my stress and anxiety. I was in an environment that had pretty much no rules outside of like just making sure you're passing, getting good grades and everything. And then in an environment where I was now involving substances, which I had never really experienced before, like to that level. And it was also just the fact that it was so normalized around me that I didn't think anything of it. Everyone around me was binge drinking and coming to class hungover, doing all this crazy shit. And it's just like, but it was like by the thousands, like it was, so I couldn't even understand what was about to happen. And so I actually still did great my freshman year, got great grades. I was in a sorority, co-ed, soccer team, did all these super, awesome things, made a great group of friends. But then by my sophomore year was when I started to like truly unravel because no longer had my, healthy routines and like coping mechanisms of like sports. I now was like starting to become dependent on substances, alcohol, and as my source of stress relief. And then obviously, as you go through college, each year becomes way more academically intense. Freshman year is your general things. You can slide by, doing the partying. It's like the classes are not that big of a deal. But then when sophomore year hit, that's when it started to get really real. I didn't have the tools. And then I was starting to like really have physical panic attacks and like different things like that were going on. That ultimately led me to, I got academically suspended by my junior year because I wasn't able to keep up with the social lifestyle and then the increasing demands of the academic environment as well. And so, and it was kind of like the universe in a way giving me this huge timeout. It was just like, what are you doing? I needed that break. And even though it was like, I thought it was the end of the world, it really wasn't. It was this amazing opportunity for me to take a look at my life and like what was going on. And that's when I really fully decided to like make a huge switch with my health and my habits and different things like that.
And I think to just stop you there for a second, a lot of people go through this, whether it's an academic suspension or it is I got really sick for 5 weeks and I got bronchitis and I couldn't go to work or whatever. So it's like your body literally, because of the anxiety, the pressure you were putting into it, the distraction techniques with the alcohol, it said, nope, no more.
Exactly.
And you had a break. And for you, it was the suspension. But I think for a lot of our other listeners, we've all been through it in different ways of like, there's a breaking point.
Yes. And I will say that I thought that would be like the final straw, but it wasn't. But it was the first opportunity for me to reflect on my behavior and to really understand like, why am I'm noticing these loops? Why am I able to like keep it together, be super healthy and like on my shit and like in this, super structured environment. And then I hit a wall and then I go back to all these patterns. And how come I cannot break this cycle? And so it was the break was great because it was a moment for me to gain awareness. Unfortunately, once I got back from that break, came back, was fine for another semester, I had another really huge screw up moment where that was where the real awakening happened. And it was actually, I didn't think I was going to share this, but we're going it. We're going to go for it. It's not that bad, but like it was after a year and a half of like, I hadn't gone out and partied. I was like really on my A game. I like stopped hanging out with people who were about it. And I was like, like I deserve to go out. Like I haven't been out. I've been, kind of bored. I've been like really dialed into all my work. And I decided to go out and go super hard that night. And then I got So intoxicated that I actually woke up in Auburn's local county jail. And I had gotten a public intox. I'm pretty sure that I was roofied, but I don't remember the last few places I went. And it was kind of like, I hate to say to downplay it, because at the time, again, it was like this catastrophic thing as like this goody two shoes person. It's like, oh my God, I'm literally someone just kill me. Um, it was kind of like a local like drunk tank for college kids, so it was like everyone else there was also like a college kid. It wasn't like I was like in a jail.
Yeah.
But I sobered up the next day, was mortified, had to have someone come pick me up. And it was just like, that was the actual rock bottom for me. And that was the point that like truly opened my eyes to, it was a form of crisis. I was only 21 and I had never been in trouble in my life. And it was this breaking point for me of just like, okay, I can go one of two ways with the situation. I can leave college with student loans and no degree and like back out, or I can like completely shift my identity by owning like what's going wrong and creating a completely new game plan of like how I approach every aspect of my life. It's like, what is happening? Like this can never happen again. This is like ridiculous. And I had to go to these like AA classes, and it was like all these college kids who weren't taking any of it seriously. And I was like mortified. I was like, I don't belong here. Like, how did this happen to me? And then I had to, a part of my like, punishment or whatever, because it was just a public intox ticket. They put me into the drunk tank for my own safety.
I love that word.
That's really what it was. I should say it was like a local jail, but like every single person there was like a drunk college student that like,
they didn't know what to do with.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I don't know where she belongs, so we're going to just put her here.
Yeah, it's like, God, it's so ridiculous. But anyways,
Do they give you IVs there?
I'm just kidding. I freaking wish.
Nowadays.
Yeah, I wish. My God, it was not that. They were just like, you're a nightmare. Like,
You need to feel the pain. You
yeah,
need to learn from this.
exactly.
We're not here to help you.
No.
You need to be checked, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was like this process. It was so good for me, though. I like needed it. It was an ego death. Because at that point I had been kind of playing the system. I was super smart. With school, but I was also trying to like run at this level with, this partying and all these other things and avoiding myself. It was all it was. It was just avoiding myself. The alcohol wasn't just for fun anymore. It was, oh, this is the only way that I can relax. This is the only way that I can lessen the internal issues that I was talking about from the start, this like angst and like physical anxiety. And so then I had to this was kind of the phase of my life where I really started to take my spirituality seriously, got super deep into, affirmations, understanding again, your inner landscape, like what can I do to make a complete shift?
And something here that I like to think about is when these types of things happen, I always say there's a point in your life when you say, how can I fix this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're sitting there thinking like it's this path or that path, and what did I do wrong, and what part of me played, the demise that I'm currently in, or my death or whatever. But then there's this other question that is kind of lights us up, right? Is where did this come from?
Yes.
And so were you at that point where you were like, yep, where did this come from? I'm going to dig deep and...
Absolutely. And I think that's a great transition. And also, too, I had never been in trouble in my life. Yeah. I had literally gotten maybe a speeding ticket. Maybe a detention. I was such a goody two-shoes person. So for this to happen to me was just such a reckoning moment that I needed. And it was amazing. And my dad actually, I don't think even knows this story. My mom kind of kept it low key. So hopefully he doesn't listen to this. Okay. Because I was like, my baby girl, my goody two shoes. So it's like, sorry, Dad. But I'm sure she's told him by now. But yeah, so the first steps that I took from that point was just at that time, I just needed to get fully sober. So, and that wasn't just from substances. It was from friends that weren't supporting. I was like, who is around me? It's really understanding who you're around and the influence that you have from a, physical friendship standpoint, what music am I listening to?
Wow.
What am I watching on TV? Like I just started looking at every single input, and I took an audit of my life, and it really looked at, or an inventory of like, who am I without all of these inputs?
Mhm.
And so like, how can I clear the slate? And then also like, who do I want to be? What person do I want to build myself to be?
And
to
can
become?
I pause you there for a second,
Please
because
do.
that's a really important thing, I think, for our listeners. And I think, Michelle, you talk about it a lot, where it's, you're the owner of the blueprint of your life, right? And so can you give the listeners a few ideas on how they can start to clear things out of their life, or like start asking some questions to help with some of these distractors that we use? And then maybe even a step further would be so that they can help their children.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And actually, I wanted to say too that the reason for, going kind of through some of these bumpy moments in my life and sharing this with our listeners is that, number one, I'm really uncomfortable sharing this. I don't like putting a spotlight on these things, but I have lost really amazing people who, I specifically, one of my really good friends, I lost to suicide in high school, and they were similar to me. Super high performer, super outgoing. Everybody loved them, the class clown, all of these things. And then one day we get a text that they, took their life. And this was it's like, to me, having conversations about this the goal is to empower parents or empower other people who are building businesses or, think they have to be perfect, that like the minute you stop trying to be perfect and you start having real conversations with yourself is where the breakthrough really begins. And I truly believe that healing isn't always light and love. It starts in the dark, and it starts by like looking at yourself and asking yourself these questions. So to kind of back up to what you're saying is just number one is looking at every single input into your life. Your mind, the way that your mind works and your subconscious mind works is that it's taking every single thing in, and it's like creating a program, whether you're conscious of it or not. So I was listening to hardcore crazy rap music
Oh
like
my
all the
God.
time. I was like,
Oh wait, pause there. Hold on,
around-
pause there.
Yeah.
I tried to tell my son this, that
it sounds
the music
crazy,
that
but
you listen
it's so
to-
real.
the music you listen to defines your life, because what they're saying and the words that you're repeating is what
hypnosis.
you're putting
Yeah.
out there into the
My
world.
husband that.
Yeah.
And so how did you change, like there's a taste for that music. How did you say, okay, that's going to be one thing that I'm going to change, and instead of singing those lyrics, I'm going to sing some other types of lyrics?
Well, I at the time, again, I was still like a 21-year-old. So I was kind of like your kids probably. I was like, that's lame. Like, I'm not thinking about that.
That's what my husband said.
Yeah,
Oh,
like-
it sounds good. What's
Like,
the
this
best?
is cool. Like, I love 3-6 Mafia. Like, I'm not going to stop listening to that. But it's like, that is probably not an influence that you should be giving the program to your mind.
Right.
So I would say step one is like literally ask yourself what you're drawn to in every single aspect of your life. So who are the people in your life? What does their life look like? What is their behavior patterns? What are they eating? What are they working out? What are they like? What kind of TV do they watch? Like all of those things from really, it seems like things that don't matter, but those are the things that like create the biggest influence, not only on yourself, but it's your subconscious mind, and it's deeply rooted into like how you will start to begin to behave.
Yeah.
So
Well, and your perception of the world.
exactly. So at the time, I didn't have real friends. Like I was popular. I had a ton of people I could hit up at any time to go do anything with, but they were people that like I couldn't go deep with. I couldn't have a conversation like this with, which is like crazy to me.
Well, and I think too, this warrants some conversation. Is the top probably 3 to 5 people that you hang out with are who you become, which we've all heard, I'm sure. It also goes to show that you're not alone, and nobody listening here is alone either with the people that they surround themselves with. A lot of times, I just had a conversation with one of my clients the other day about this. Is he's going through a a trust issue with who he surrounds himself in terms of work situations. And it's like he wants to trust everybody. And so he brings people into his life that don't warrant that trust. And it kind of bringing to, if you could go a little bit deeper with us, is like, how would you tell somebody like that to better vet the people that they allow into their life so that they can have trusting relationships, that they can talk about this, whether it's personally or in a work situation? And how do you upgrade those people in your life if you know that you need to?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to lead into this period of my life led me to a very intentional season of isolation. And it's very important to allow this for yourself and to learn to be comfortable being alone and being in your own energy, because and it doesn't have to be forever. This could be like, and it doesn't have to be like, I can't talk to anyone. Just whatever feels natural for you. For me, I needed a clean house. I needed to get every single person out of my life. I needed to look at like, what do I need to do to like get out of the situation and like make a massive shift? Because if I keep going down this path, I'm only 21. Everyone's like, oh, it's fine. It's like, no, I want to live an extraordinary life. I don't want to be like every single person around me. So where can I go to next? And so I didn't have anyone around me at the time that I really could look at as like, oh, these are friends that I want to hang out with. And so I actually just started finding people online that I would pretend were like my mentors. So it's like I was super into the classics like Jim Rohn. I started listening to all of his teachings like on repeat, everything with Tony Robbins. I found a ton of spiritual, Abraham Hicks, started getting into all different types of books and like in that lane. And once I started to fill myself and my subconscious with those ideas, and I started to view myself as that person, those people just naturally started to come into my life. It was just like an attraction thing. So it's like, and I would say to your friend who's bringing in people that he's having issues with trust, I would say that the number one thing is when you take this time to isolate, to do the shadow work, see where these issues are within yourself, what's not working, and you clear that out, you then become in this great relationship with yourself and you learn trust within yourself. And when you truly understand, like, I trust myself to make in whatever decision I make, those people, it starts happening less and less and less.
You don't attract them anymore.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like you have to learn, like Neville Garter said, you have to learn I am trust, right? And how do you learn that?
Absolutely.
Going deep.
Yeah. But a good transition out of kind of this little messy season that I had. Let's move on. Is that once I started to gain momentum, the shift started to happen quickly. And so I was using the tools that I eventually got certified in unconsciously, just because I didn't know why it was getting better, but it was, I just knew like, okay, this works for me. So I'm going to keep repeating this habit, and that was for me getting really into, and I'm sure Justin can talk a lot about this, is that having trust in your health and your body, and like really, honoring your body as a temple goes hand in hand with like working with your mind. So for me, obviously when I was drinking wine and laying around and not doing anything and like making all these bad, healthy choices, that was feeding into the negative thought patterns, that was feeding into the anxiety, that was bringing this super tiny, tiny amount of relief in a moment, but then leaving a wake of devastation, as any time followed that. So once I realized health and mental wellness were hand in hand, that's when it was just like, it became a joint journey for me. So and I was an athlete growing up. So it was just like, I knew that this was going to work. So I got super back into fitness, super into nutrition. I did a huge period of isolation where I just really didn't have like a lot of friends. Started guarding my mind, like as if it was like, there was like a gate to my mind. It's something Tony Robbins really talked about, is like, really pay attention, like who's projecting onto you what information, thoughts, beliefs, ideas. Does that actually resonate as true for me? Is this helpful to where I'm going? And it sounds all of this
started to help you remember you.
Literally, that is the perfect way to put it. It just helped me understand who I wasn't. And so I think the best thing to do is just to start asking your question, who are you without all of these external inputs. And they don't always have to be bad, where it's like, who am I without my career? Who am I without, the success, my financial success? Who am I without, the toxic inputs or like drinking, caffeine, like all these different things, and taking time to like sit with yourself and, feel into that.
Well, and I think a good question too for any of our young listeners are, who are you without the influence of your parents or your teachers or your guidance counselors or your coaches? Who are you? What resonates with you? What gives you freedom? And we don't ask our young kids that ever.
Well, no. And I think, after getting through this season, starting to get into my professional career and like having the momentum with my mental health and all these different things, is that I just would look back at those times and I wish somebody would have sat me down at that time, in these, especially these formative years, and said, like, you don't have to be anything.
Yes.
Like, let's create a container for you to explore what is you're drawn to and you're interested in, without this like obsessive pressure of like and having a tangible outcome.
And loving the mistakes that you make, because mistakes create change and change creates beauty.
Absolutely. But yeah, sorry.
But I was thinking it's more about who are we deciding to be. In all our experiences, we're getting clarity of who we want to be. So you decided you didn't want to be that person that ended up in the
yes, the
drunk tank.
Right.
I'm so using that word.
Yeah.
Phrase.
So you
common
decide
in the
that.
SEC world. Yes.
And then you start taking steps to not be that person.
Yes.
And then you find the outlets that will allow you to become who you want to be. And in the process, you're learning and getting clarity about who you want to be, because you still went into a career. And did you experience anxiety there?
Yes. And I would say that, so the period of isolation, taking an audit on yourself and understanding, like, especially if you're in this moment of crisis, like, what do I want to do? How do I move past this?
Mhm.
That's like step one, is like actually getting a lay of the land of your internal world.
Mhm.
So if you're going to become the inner architect, you need to know what's going on. So what are the common things that I'm talking about? What are the common thoughts that I'm having? What are the people I'm around? Really just take 30 minutes. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
And then once you have that, you know where you're at as a baseline, and then looking at who is someone else that I really love what they have done with their life. And I think, to me, having a physical example of someone who has a career that I wanted, has a look that I wanted, has like the friends that I wanted, or even the way they spoke and they showed up, whatever it was, that was just an amazing anchor point outside of myself to begin reverse engineering and saying, like, okay, if that's what I want it to be, now I need to create steps and listen to what they did in their story to like actually get to that place. And even though it wasn't what I wasn't trying to ever emulate someone else, it was just to get me to the next phase of like, not shaming where I was or what I was at, but it was like, okay, what is the direction that I actually want to go?
How did, because I believe coaches and mentors are like the shortcut to success.
Totally.
And when you surround yourself with the 3 to 5 people and you're around the people that you truly look up to and are willing to just dismantle your own beliefs and your own ways of doing things. And as Bruce Lee has put, empty the cup so that you can fill it up with the right things.
Yep.
Because you had to get to this state of being alone, isolated, to be able to then see the mentor or the vision of yourself at that level that you wanted to see, but maybe you didn't know that at that point, right? But what was that moment for you? For you go through this isolation, the next phase of your life, the next level of your life, who triggered and what was that?
Such a great question. So survived this like messy moment in college, early 20s, start reprogramming myself, becoming super obsessed with the concept of a growth mindset because I'm listening to Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, all these different things. And then I get into the professional world and just absolutely start getting my ass kicked again. Because going from college to your first job in my background's in marketing. It's a brutal transition. Like, you're going from learning from a textbook to applying real world knowledge to something you have no idea how it works. And of course, my first boss, was like the worst of the worst. Like and it was like the universe kept giving me these opportunities for me to like develop myself. She was like, people would come out of her office crying. Like she was just like brutal. And it was like, this is an opportunity. Like, and as I would sit in my car and I would be like, my God, like I just got out of this. And I'm like so sensitive, at that point. But I was like, no, this is an opportunity to develop more resilience. And this is now another opportunity of like, I don't want to be here. So like, now repeat the process and keep moving forward. So
that boss was not your mentor.
it was
Or was she your mentor?
No, to me, actually, that's why I brought that up, is that she was a mentor in the sense of this is who I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And I never want to make people feel this way. And so, and this isn't the only way. And so then moving on to, different professional experiences, personal experiences that ultimately led me to continue deepening and refining this work that we're talking about. Again, it's just asking yourself the hard questions. And I would say I was really through like the thick of it as far as, my lifestyle habits were really good. I, started finally having really genuine friendships. And I was really in this place where I was starting to have like work that felt meaningful, but there was still something really missing for me. And it was just having those actual tools and language. Like I was doing all of this unconsciously. So I didn't have like a blueprint at this point of like, what can I regularly do to, create this regulated nervous system state so that I can make decisions from a place of authenticity. And that's when I started to learn about breathwork. And that was really about like 5 years ago. And I started a breathwork practice, just watching free YouTube videos. I started going to like hot yoga classes, just really realizing like, oh, okay, like there's a way to like physically calm myself down and get out of the fight or flight like state that I had regularly been in, again, unconsciously.
Yeah.
And then once I'm out of that state, now my mind clears. Oh, well, now that my mind's clear, like why am I even going in this route with my career? Why am I in this romantic relationship? Why do I have all of these people around me that, some are a hell yeah, and some of them are like this, that we're not going in the same path. And so that's why I have such a huge emphasis on first regulating your physical state, because when you're, in that state of stress and you're constantly, dysregulated, you really can't connect with what is like true for you and what is authentic for you. And so once I got to that place of getting into my body and really understanding the power of, stepping into that state, that's really when I began to experience true freedom. And when you start to experience that level of freedom of, oh, I don't have to wear this mask. I don't have to be the good kid. I don't have to be the perfect student. I don't have to be, the overachiever. I don't have to be all of these things that other programs that were downloaded onto me. I can sit with a clean canvas and I can create this for myself. And that all was really born from having such a powerful breathwork practice. And then ultimately led me to, okay, now I'm chilled out. This is great. Now I'm starting to know what's me, what's not me, what my interests really are, what it isn't. And I start to create confidence around that. Then it's like, okay, how do I reinforce this to create changes more quickly? And that's when I started to really get into understanding the subconscious mind and the power of what we're saying to ourselves. Everybody's like, say positive affirmations. If you're in a state of fight or flight, that is not going to, it doesn't matter what you say. Right. Like your conscious mind is like in survival mode. And so that's why once you get into that regulated state, your body's calmed down, and then your mind is relaxed enough to actually receive, those affirmations or different thought patterns or different things, suggestions to go into a different route.
So I have a question about that. So going back to your anxiety.
Yeah.
So could you give us like an example of like a thought process that you were in with the anxiety and how you used maybe one breathwork technique to calm yourself down, shut that worry off, and bring the peace forward?
Yep. I would say that this is a part of the internal audit. So after you take an understanding of baseline of like where you're at is taking note of your triggers. So things that, when I'm in this situation, it heightens my anxiety. Why does it do that? And take.
So like, I love examples.
Yeah.
So I'll just use me. So
Yeah.
I love to worry about what I'm eating, literally. Like, and even though I'll end up like having my cookie at 3:00, we've all heard about.
Yeah.
But I'm like worried, like, okay, is this beef stick, how much stuff has in there? And then like what, and then like, what's like the additives, and is it going to cause cancer? And like, I go down this like path of like anxiety and like worry. So how can if I'm sitting in the grocery store looking at 16 different things with my Yuka app, how do I quiet my mind?
That's a great question. And that's a very foundational component to hypnosis. And it's like thought disruption. So it's like immediately whatever you can do once you feel the spiral happening is immediately disrupting the pattern. So whether that's like throwing your phone down, walking around, taking call someone, whatever it is, literally whatever you can do to break that state and break that thought pattern and stop yourself from going down that route is the first and most effective way of doing that.
So I have.
Can I? I'll share. So when I have a spiral of thoughts or things going on, I'll literally hit the side of my head to knock them out. Like that. That's like an example right there.
So and just because I know hypnosis too, I have to tell everybody there could be bilateral stimulation. That's what we're all doing, right? So it's like you just kind of like figure out something that's going to work for you. You quiet your brain. You make sure that both sides of your brain are working, whether it's hitting this side, hitting that side. People call it tapping, whatever it might be. All really good ideas for bilateral stimulation.
Well, what we did before we started is the breathing in and breathing out, because that's a focus concentration on something else.
Yeah.
So then it switches, and then you feel calmer inside, because I think the anxiety feeling is there's a tension in the body, there's a stress in the body, and no one wants to feel that, but no one knows how to get rid of it. And that's why the breath work is amazing.
Yes.
You can get rid of it.
And it's almost immediate. So I mean, like, and that's I think why I like all these other techniques and like, tapping on your head or, the bilateral stimulation or whatever. But like going back to the breath is like what's happening from like, physiological perspective is that you're oxygenating your bloodstream. So you're like actually creating a physiological response to slow everything down. And that is where the relaxation comes from. And so,
and would you say so? Like when I'm sitting there worrying in the store, it is literally putting my body into a fight or flight state of anxiety, I guess. And so from there, when I can quiet that nervous system in whatever way works for me, then I can make the right choice, and I'll have the clarity of mind to move forward with whatever beef stick I want.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Absolutely. And I think that it's really great to point out too that these can all these little stressors can happen in micro moments. So it doesn't have to be this super deep dive into like all of your like darkest caverns within your soul. It can literally be like, I'm at the grocery store and I have anxiety about like the food that I'm eating, and how do I like stop in that moment to like become more regulated and clear again. So it's a full spectrum. But the work that I'm talking about here today with going deep into this like shadow work, taking time to audit yourself and these different aspects of yourself is that once you do it, you've done it.
Yeah.
So you're it's not something you endlessly have to go back to. Yes, you want to do check-ins, over time and like, use meditation and self-awareness to reflect with yourself, but like actually pausing to see like why I'm behaving the way I'm behaving actually lessens its power over you. And so it makes all of the other things, all of these tools don't work unless you have a relationship with yourself and you have awareness into your behavior patterns and, the things that are around you that are affecting how you think and how you feel. And once you have an idea of that, and this again, it's just simply awareness, everything else is like, that's when the tools actually can work for you.
And that's what we need to realize
Yes.
as people, is that our thoughts are the stressor.
Yes.
So we can stop them, control them, or switch them or flip them. then we can get rid of the stress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things to do once you do get to that place where, because I have a super fast-paced mind, it's like always going, and so there's a lot that, I think that's very common for a lot of people. And the breath work is just this entry point again to make your physical body relax, also clearing out your mind. And then that's where the power of like giving yourself suggestions and like giving yourself thought replacement. So it's like, I don't know what's an example of a bad thought you're having, like as like, oh my God, this food's gonna like kill me, or like,
I was just having a conversation with Michelle this morning in a session, and it was like I had this meditation, breath work to center myself before starting the day, and you're open to receive whatever comes in and choose how you want to receive it, right? And the thought that came up, which I think everybody can relate to, is those conflicts and challenges that we have in life, usually associated with coworkers or partners or other relationships. It's relationships is probably the number one stressor in our lives. And we assume them to be a certain way, and we play a conversation in our mind before we even have a talk with them before the day, right? We're already defending ourselves in the conversation. And if you can identify that spiral and go, wait, stop. What if it were to be received with love, with peace, with understanding and connection? What would that conversation look like? And we were talking about this today and going, what is the real root source to creation? It's spirit. It's beyond what you can see in the physical world. And you take that reality on and go, I'm tapping into the true person there, the one that I imagine, the one that I assume them to be. And that puts you into a more peaceful state. And we got to do that with ourselves first and foremost, because we're hardest on ourselves. So seeing ourselves in that grace and then in that light, not being, forgot something or did something wrong or whatever it may be, and getting in tune with that. But it started with breath work to get to that clarity, to get to that space where I could calm my nervous system down and see that perspective.
Well, and every morning with everybody that I work with, and whether it's at home or in work or whatever, is I always think of the saying, I am you and you are me, and we are all one. And if you realize that we're all coming from a place of love for the most part, and the people that you're dealing with, whatever they're doing is to not hurt you, it's to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And it's powerful when you take that perspective, how your relationships change.
You're not taking anything personal now. You're starting to help them. You're trying to understand them as opposed to pointing the finger at them. Instead, you're trying to listen and feel them.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it is, again, going into why I am viewing this foundational inner work as so important, because we are walking, unless you're taking time to understand yourself and develop a really good relationship with yourself, you're walking around unconsciously projecting these things onto other people.
Yep.
You're so critical of yourself. Like, I would say I was so insanely critical of myself that, like, that is, of course, how I treated every single person. I was like, nobody's good enough. The expectations are like completely ridiculous. Like, and everybody's falling short, but it's because that's how I was treating myself. So watch how that reflects. Now that I've taken this time to go deep and be with those things and like pour light onto it, I, have this amazing like well of like self-love. And it's not from a lens of like ego. It's more of just like acceptance and understanding that like, oh, I don't have to be all those things, and to heal that inner critic, that super ridiculous voice that's like telling you need to be perfect or whatever else it's telling you, or the echo of your mom growing up or whatever it is. Taking time to like make peace with it and having that inner peace within yourself and that inner calm then reflects in all the relationships around you. So that's why I always tell people, it's like going deep in this way and creating this relationship with yourself is for the benefit of everyone around you. It's a ripple effect. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because I think the releasing the judgment we have of ourselves and other people, then we can be in the state of receiving the good they can show us, and we can experience that. Like, we're always thinking, oh, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. if you stop thinking that, he'll start doing the things.
Yes.
It's a nice and
So
powerful
true.
thing.
Yes.
So true.
Awesome.
So wait, going back to your shadow work, I know you brought this.
Yes.
So are you feeling comfortable to share with us like a little bit of like what people can do with shadow work and
yeah, I mean, well, so I actually developed something that I want to share. So if you go to my website, christinashay.com/get free, I actually created a 45-minute like training about, so these are journal prompts and questions that you can do to dive deeper into yourself. You know, again, these are just little sessions to have by yourself, journal prompts to kind of explore. And then the second part of it is actually going way deeper into the science behind what is happening when you physiologically with breath work, and then also with hypnosis and like what's happening with your subconscious mind. There's a lot that, you can nerd out with this kind of stuff, but I think it really does start with that emotional work. But I wanted people to have something to take home so that they can just continuously access. So definitely go there and download that and let me know how it goes.
sweet. Thank you.
Yes.
That was christinashay.com /
Get free. Yes.
Now, something that came to mind when you guys were talking about anxiety is the fine line between excitement and anxiety.
Mm.
Have you built a relationship between those two in terms of like consciously aware? And I know that's always unfolding as we
for
develop,
sure.
right? But can you speak on that?
Yeah, I think that's an amazing question. I love that. And it also goes into why language is so powerful. And really looking at, so to answer in short, yes, I would say I've just done a total reframe of that and saying when I am starting to feel those heightened feelings, it's not always that it's like panic. It's like, oh, like I'm in a situation that maybe is new. Maybe I'm a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe there's some uncertainty involved with it, but that's exciting. I don't want to know how every single thing in my life is going to unfold. That's boring. Like this is, like allowing yourself to have a more organic relationship with life and like your surroundings is also super helpful to kind of, taking any negative feeling associated with, when your body does feel heightened. Because it's not always a bad thing. It is like you're just excited. Like this is something new. This is something different. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with how to reprogram yourself in general and how you're, perceiving every single different situation. That's a really great question.
I put myself in, like what came to mind was like when I was trying out for colleges and doing like 1-day camps, and you'd be amongst all these great athletes. And it was the prep work that we're talking about, the isolation, the breath work, the breath work and the self-reflection and the development that you've gone through. That's the practice that makes you confident in situations that may bring up that anxiety that can be translated into excitement or just really energy to put into or shall I say, the energy that you can put forth the effort to create the results that you want. Absolutely. Or to create the excitement that you want.
Absolutely.
And the change a lot of times, because that excitement is you're doing something new and it's exciting and you need that energy to go and continue taking small actionable steps to make it successful in whatever you're doing. It's really important to redirect from the negative worry energy to the excited, I'm happy to be here. I'm taking steps. I'm having this life journey right now.
Absolutely.
And then to think of high stress situations like that and being in competition with other people, your mindset in all of that. Are you thinking, I can do this, I'm going to figure it out? Or are you thinking, oh my God, I can't compete with these people?
Well, and I think another way I think there's a reality of the situation that comes into play. And that's why I love going deeper than just, everybody speak positively and have positive affirmations.
Yeah.
It's like when you're freaking the fuck out, like that doesn't work. And so, in those situations, the way to reinforce that is coming up with a list of times that you've been successful or you've had success overcoming that specific thing, or like really having on hand a list of times where you felt confident because you did XYZ, whether that's navigating an uncomfortable conversation where it came out with a really good result, or like winning a competition, whatever that is. But like having those list of things ready for you when those stressful times come up to pull on and remind yourself and say like, no, I've done this before. It's a level of reinforcement that actually makes those affirmations land, because you're building that trust within yourself. You're not blowing smoke. You're like, no, I have a track record of doing X, Y, and Z. And so I think that kind of leads me to my last really big point here today, is just talking about like, or understanding like the language that you're using and how your subconscious mind is always listening.
Mhm.
And so when you say, and I can't wait, I've been wanting to challenge you on this forever about I need my cookie, or whatever else. It's like, well, you do, because you say that. You always say
that.
It's like we all do it.
Thank you for making me a better person.
No, I'm just saying
You're
it's just
deciding.
a perfect low-hanging fruit example. Like, I need my cookie. I need to do this. Or like my mom always says that. It just drives me nuts. She's always like, well, I'm lazy. And it's like this is this identity that you're clinging to.
Right.
When it's like, no, like you've literally worked 50 hours this week and you're understandably exhausted and need to rest today.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean you're a lazy person, but it's like, because of whatever her inner story is about all of that, it's like, now I'm lazy. Now I'm lazy. Now I'm lazy. Now everything's starting to be lazy.
Yeah.
And so it's like realizing that like your words are spells when it comes to like how you want your behavior to be. And
It's so true. I'll give another example, and I've had to really work on this. I always say I'm tired. Even if I get like 8
Yeah.
hours of sleep, and I'm like,
Yeah.
if I have a little bit of a low energy drain, I'm sitting there saying I'm tired. I'm so I'm like, every time I say that to myself, I'm like, no, you didn't need to rest, and you have a lot of energy. I am energetic. I am energetic.
well, and I obviously we can't, there's a level of just like, yes, sometimes we're tired, but it's like looking at the things that you're regularly saying to yourself. Like there's nothing wrong with being honest about like, I got my ass kicked today at work and I'm exhausted, but like the things that you're repeatedly saying to yourself, like taking note of that.
Yeah.
And saying like, is this actually serving me? And even if it is, like, you just want to replace that with something that is going to give you a better outcome, even if you're not fully believing it at first. Just becoming in the habit of saying that actually can make such an incredible difference with how your subconscious mind is like viewing yourself even. I think one easy example for me is just like, I used to always say that I'm not a morning person. And because I just liked more being up at nighttime, because there's another version of being, the world is quiet. But I created this whole story, and it's like, I completely shattered that because I actually love being up in the morning now. And it's like, it was just like, it's not even that hard. It's like a thing that is just like, I had this identity so built up in my mind. This is the way I am, when it's like, is it though?
Right.
Like, does it have to be that way? And so it's just like giving yourself an opportunity to rewrite your own script that you're telling yourself, and then like watch how your subconscious assists you in, making that actual deep-rooted change.
The saying in the beginning, there was the word, comes to mind, right? And you're really in control of the trillions of cells that you have in your body that are vibrating based on your vocal cords and your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
You talk about the shadow work, and everything you're talking about just screams identity. And you and I have talked about this in terms of that there's a version of Hope that there's a black mamba, and then there's we talked about spirit animals, but could you talk about like the importance of identity and how you branded yourself?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. I would say that understanding the power of identity is going to take you further than any of these tools that we're talking about. So step one being the shadow work, looking at, where you're falling short in the areas within yourself is, again, getting that baseline, but then actually asking yourself who you want to be and how to start viewing yourself that way is really how you're going to start making the massive shift. Because it's like, for me, my image of myself wasn't what everybody was seeing. You know, I had this image of like, I don't even know, just like not this like person who sucked at everything. Like, and it was like, I had results to prove to me that that wasn't real, but it was that I didn't take time to like sit with myself and actually work with, you know, like, what is my identity? And that's why I say for people who are a little more anxious or are in the process of shifting their identity is sit down and come up with a list of amazing things that you've done that you're actually proud of. And it could be super tiny. It doesn't have to be I graduated law school. Like it could be,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like it could be, which is like a life changing, like that's like a milestone, you know, but like it could be, you know, I was really nervous to have this conversation with my boyfriend and went super well. And now I know that I'm equipped to handle these conversations now. And taking time to like sit with yourself and actually literally write it out in a journal and just like take a like little look at yourself. And it's like, oh my gosh, like this is how I create a foundation of like trust within myself. And then ask myself, what is the identity that I want to have? And what are those traits? And so it's like listing out for me, like Layla Hormozi was a really big online mentor for me. She's like a really powerful, very successful entrepreneur and had a very similar mental health journey to me. So she was, you know, it was like when I found her, it was like, oh my God, you know, yes, like there's someone who hid all of these things and covered it up with performance. And then once they got to that success, you know, started to share how you can skip all of that. And I just looked at everything that she was showing up as. And I was like, these are traits that I really want to embody and she's showing up, she, you know, really put together, you know, every day. Like that's what you talked about is like for her is like dressing simply like how you know, put yourself together in the morning and being in alignment with, you know, who you want to be is like such a low hanging fruit thing to help with your building your identity. The words you say, how you speak, you know, just those character traits. And then I just started to like look at every day as an opportunity to like start testing it out. And it's kind of like, you don't need to tell anyone about it. You know, this can be a super personal, quiet inner journey that you're doing and working on with yourself. And eventually people are going to start noticing. It's like, hey, like you feel super different. You know, like, what are you doing? It's like, you're going to start radiating from, you know, glowing from the inside because you're doing this work to not only provide yourself relief, but to embody the person that you want to become. But yeah, that was a really good question. Cool.
There's something that reminded me of kind of your isolation journey. And I could relate to many of the stories that you went through.
We're very similar.
Yes. Yeah, we got a lot of commonalities.
Yeah.
Similar ages too when it happened. My TV broke one time and I never replaced it. And I went for 5 years without a TV. And it was probably the best time of isolation, just in a very simple, I didn't have to remove people from my life. It just created that space. And so screen time is one of those big things
Yes.
that we all immerse ourselves in so much, and it just pulls us away from the inner screen
Yes.
and looking at that.
I would say, and that's something too that all my friends would always like give me shit about this, but it's like I stopped watching TV for like a long time and I only watched things. It was a little militant at one point.
You're talking about extreme?
I will say that was at the time but I needed it. So like for me, I wanted to create radical change and I needed to like make a massive shift from where I was. And so that's why I did these very radical things.
Yeah.
And it and I started to see results so fast. So it was reinforcing my behavior. There does come a time where you don't have to be into that extreme route, where you can reintegrate into having balance. But for me, I was just at that crisis point where I was like, if I don't do a total 180 right now, I am going to be on a path that's not great. But the last part that I really wanted to talk about today, and I didn't mean for this to be so much about like me and my story, but I'm hoping that like our audience or listeners can like take from this, you know, maybe relate to some of these different aspects of what I'm talking about. But I also wanted to end with more of like the science behind like how like this is all the changes happening within your brain and how, you know, behavior change really happens. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was neuroplasticity. And essentially, this is the mechanism in your brain that allows it to rewire itself. And by using breathwork and hypnosis, you can create those ideal conditions within your brain to allow that rewiring to happen more efficiently and much faster. And so, kind of what we were talking about before is that when you're quieting the noise in your mind, you're opening your access to your subconscious mind. And so it's kind of this permeable like place where now that the conscious mind and the physical body is relaxed, I can feed suggestions, ideas, and new concepts into my subconscious mind, which is essentially running the show, and it can create a much quicker shift. So hypnosis actually takes you into the brain state, which is the theta brainwave state. And so this is essentially the brainwave that happens when you're just about to be dreaming. It's like a dreamlike state. And that's where those suggestions take root so much more quickly. And so, I wanted to share all of these messy little parts of my journey just to showcase that, like, you don't have to go through that. Like, we are all suffering with these different stories and these internal patterns and these loops. And you don't actually have to stumble along and be alone and isolate yourself and do all these things. There is science to support how to create massive change and quickly. And these are just two tools that can help you get to that point. So once you've kind of taken an inner inventory, done all these things, hypnosis will kind of get you into that state and, really allow you to not like dissolve those thought patterns that you had before, but also reintroduce new ones. And I had a therapist really give me this great example is that, like, the way your brain works is that everything is a neural pathway. So it's all repetition and regarding our behavior change. And so if think about like the neural pathways in your brain is if you're hiking down like a trodden trail. So it's like, it's really easy to get through. It's just a repeat thing. It's just unconscious at this point because it's so familiar. But when you're ready to start making actual shifts in your life and your behavior and day-to-day actions, you have to like give yourself credit, because instead of taking that trodden trail, you're going into the wild grass. And think about like having like a knife or whatever, something that you have to beat down a new path in order for it to become a regular, reoccurrence. And it just takes repetition. But in order to do that as like a shortcut way is dropping into your body, using breath work and using the subconscious mind to get through more quickly. But it does take a level of repetition for that to kind of like actually manifest on outside in your regular life. And again, interrupting those patterns is really important to that. And the last thing really is just saying that neuroplasticity isn't about thinking new thoughts, it's about feeling them. So this kind of goes into your manifesting world. If you want to speak to this anymore, I know that you're really big into manifesting and understanding the energy behind like the law of attraction and, all of these different things, but there is science to support that.
There's definitely science. I think the Heart Math Institute has a lot about this if anybody wants to dig really deep into it. Joe Dispenza, a lot of his books can clearly articulate how this is being proven. The bottom line, I think, is if you're looking at it from quick change and layman's terms, is as soon as you open your mind and your body to new possibilities by doing whatever modality is going to work for you, those possibilities will be downloaded into you literally. So treat yourself. If you're into computers, kind of like your brain is your computer, your brain processes everything that's coming at us. We're right now in a 3D world. We have 5 senses. We use all of those things to process. When you start looking and realizing that there's different perspectives, you'll start downloading different things into your body, into your brain, and then those things will naturally just start to appear.
Yeah.
And that's creating your own reality.
Yes.
And I will tell you, the power of manifesting, the law of attraction is alive and well. I mean, you can just look at it in people who have cheated on their spouses or whatever, that comes back. It always comes back. And whether it's that happens to you or the relationship crumbles, whatever's it's all the law of attraction. That energy will come back until you get rid of it.
Can you talk to the importance of feeling as it involves manifestation? Because I think that's a piece that a lot of people kind of miss
Yeah.
in the affirmation ring of things, right?
Yeah. So,
Because I look at you and like we were just talking about it before the podcast with your son and bringing that up so quick. And we all have great examples, but that's a highlight right there that, you know, I look at and go, you know what you're doing here. You're doing it intentionally, even as surprising as they are, which is always exciting.
yeah.
You know, it's always surprising to go, wow, this works. But like the feeling embodied into it.
It's the best way that I can describe it is instead of saying words is feeling it. And we have an ongoing joke in my family, and you guys are going to think I'm crazy. I actually can't believe I'm telling you this, that I'm an alien from another planet.
I believe it.
We're from the same planet.
I do not use words to like really the best.
Feeling is the language.
Feeling in my energy is how and so sometimes I get really frustrated because I'm like, can't you just feel what I'm trying to tell you? And instead they're like, no, you need to use your words, Christina. And I'm like, okay. So you have to feel. And when I'm talking about this, it's like, I guess since we've talked about worry and anxiety a lot, worry and anxiety have a feeling, a vibration. It's like tense, your body. It's all these things that Hope's been talking about with letting things kind of slow down, slowing your nervous system. When you slow your nervous system down and you stop feeling that energy of anxiety, of worry, it brings you to a different level of vibration. Now you're feeling calm. You're feeling peace. You're feeling freedom to breathe. And that feeling feels, even by saying it, feels just so much like more relaxing, and you're raising your vibration. And then it's like tuning. I'm sure you guys have all heard about this, like in different things you've listened and watched, but it's tuning your body to that radio station. And then that's the radio station that you're going to start listening to. And so when you can tune your feelings to that, you'll start attracting those songs and that radio station.
That's so beautifully said. And I think a really great example to how it really is such a state of frequency or a radio station is that there could be two people experiencing the exact same scenario and having a completely different experience to it.
Yeah.
Just look at your siblings. We all went through with the same thing. And then we all have, well, I don't remember. That's not what I saw. Well, it was your perception based on what radio station you were tuned to.
Yeah, I think there was a court case recently on like a mugging, and they had like 30 witnesses and all had different stories.
Yes.
30 different perspectives of the same situation at hand. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Hope. We really appreciate it. Our somatic breathwork expert, our hypnosis. Go check her website out. Thank you for your time and all the sharing that you did with us. I know you really opened yourself up, so we appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Hopefully it helps somebody on whatever stage of their journey. And I'm super excited to keep this conversation going.
It absolutely will. And thank you for all of your listeners for tuning in to the Remember You podcast. We appreciate you. Welcome home.